Big 12 or go home. I'm Brandon Shanahan, joined as always by Iowa broadcasting legend Drew Russell, broadcasting live from Branson, Missouri. Drew Russell, happy holidays. Did you have a good Christmas, first and foremost?
Hey, had a terrific Christmas, Brandon. Got to enjoy some great football and basketball over the weekend, and I feel like we're getting kind of old enough now that when I'm asked what I got for Christmas, I it's like, well, got some nice things that are really cool, but usually if I just want something, Brandon, I just go buy it
Yeah.
these days. It's not like I'm waiting all year. Oh, please get this for me. So it's tough, but it was a great Christmas. What about you?
You know what Christmas has kind of turned into for me is just an opportunity for my fiance to replace the pants and underwear that have holes in them that like I think are fine. Like I had one pair of pants that had like a zipper pocket like on the thigh, and the zipper was halfway off. This is fine. I mean, I'll just whenever I have to go out, I just tuck the zipper into the pocket, and you can barely tell that it's broken. So that's mostly what Christmas has turned into as I've aged. But otherwise, yeah, great stuff. Football for me as a Broncos fan, not so great. But as a Big 12 fan and as a host of one of the fastest growing Big 12 podcasts in the world,
Mm-hmm.
it's great. This is our time here, Drew Russell, when we're able to pitch propaganda right before the New Year's Six bowls when everybody forgets about the Big 12. But this is our time right now.
Hey, look, college football. We've discussed about all the maybe some interesting things going with college football. Bowl season's been great so far. I mean, the
Yeah.
games have been really good. If you actually sit down, watch these games or have these games on in the background, there's been, I think, some really good and entertaining football played so far. The Big 12 have picked up some really nice wins. Games are, even as we chat right now, we got more games going on right now, but some really nice wins. Oklahoma State able to wrap up their season and get that double-digit mark against Texas A&M, which it's nice to see. A fan base like Oklahoma State get a victory over a fan base that, if you talk to them, you'd think they won 10 national championships when, they can't really win one in any era. So, that's a really nice win for them. Kansas, I give Kansas some credit. First bowl win in 15 years, Brandon, 2008 was the last time they won that in their famed Orange Bowl. So Big 12's had some ups. They've had a couple downs as well with results, but at least the bowl games I think have been really good so far. That's been awesome.
Yeah, and I'll kind of dive into the Big 12 because I'm so excited about what's happening with the Big 12. Like this is my Super Bowl is the Big 12 having a good bowl season. But before that, I mean, my biggest takeaway outside of the Big 12 is just how fun are these bowl games, and I know they're
Yeah.
not always ones that you get up and you get juiced for. But I was thinking about it the other day, like, boy, getting some of these programs on like network television on ESPN and ABC,
Hmm.
the Armed Forces Bowl with James Madison Air Force
Yeah.
and Jacksonville State and Florida A&M. Like these are some schools that don't get any real publicity, and this is actually their Super Bowl, pretty close too. I
Yes.
mean, they have their conference championships, but this is also such a big moment for their seasons, and it's just as a college football fan, it's so cool to see. And boy, it those guys on the field, this means so much to them. I
Yes.
remember even watching when Duke won their bowl game. That's kind of one that you circle on the calendar and think, okay, well, their head coach left, their quarterback left, they're having guys opt out, they're having guys transfer out. Are they really going to be there? They were there and they were dialed in. The guys that put on the chin straps that day were as
Hmm.
dialed in as could be. Their
Yeah.
interim coach after the game was so emotional, so excited for these guys, and it is a big deal. And it just kind of made me think, whatever the next evolution of college football is, I
Yeah.
hope it still includes this because this is very special.
It is, and I think it's great from just a sheer viewer perspective. It's great. I think in the holiday season, it's great just to have football on all freaking day. We're in the time of year where it doesn't really feel like legit days between Christmas and New Year's. You're just kind of hanging in there, and the games are just great filler. I mean, to have to start football at 11 a.m. in the morning, or even earlier, like this week, and then go all the way through 11 midnight or even a little past is awesome. It's great for a football fan. It's nice. You can just turn something on. You don't really give a rip about the two teams, but sometimes, but I mean, it's fun just to see teams you don't see at all play, Brandon, go compete. And like the Big 12, again, we mentioned the wins. West Virginia as well also had a terrific run. They're a very nice win over I picked North Carolina, regrettably. West Virginia played a great football game in their victory. It's been a lot of fun so far.
Yeah, and I think the suits of college football who kind of would try to sell you that bowl season's not very necessary or not
Hmm.
as electric would probably try to tell you something that, well, now with the expanded playoff and the transfer portal and the how many guys opt out of bowl games for the NFL, it's just not going to be a good enough product. I think that's so wrong. And yes, like you said, we first of all we don't get to see a lot of these teams throughout the season, just with the rustle and bustle of the rest of college football.
Yeah.
But even the teams that we do get to see a lot of, this is turning into such a good opportunity to see some guys that we would have never thought about coming into the season. I mean, just the other night, Miller Moss for USC. Who who is that, Drew Russell? I don't know. I had no idea that there was a guy on their team named Miller Moss who was a quarterback, let alone somebody who would throw for 6 touchdowns, nearly 400 yards against
Right.
Louisville, who, talking about early November, might have been a backdoor
Right.
playoff team. Like these are the stories that we're going to get to see more of, is guys who maybe didn't get a shot throughout the regular season. Now they get a month's worth of practice. They
Hmm.
get to dial it in. They get to try out for the team next year. I mean,
Yeah.
USC was kind of the top target for on three and everybody for getting guys like Cam Ward
Hmm.
or Will Howard. Then Miller Moss goes out, throws for 372 yards, 6 touchdowns, and boy,
Yeah.
you think maybe this kid's earned a shot, and we'll see that with the Ohio State game this week. We'll see that with Florida State here coming up.
Hmm.
Um, we just get to see it's turning more into what what can we show off going into next year, as opposed to
Yep.
the traditional format where we're really trying to put a cap on what's been a successful season.
Yeah.
And boy, I think that's special. I think we're going to see some real gems here, Drew Russell.
Well, and you make outstanding points regarding, these kids that are at these bowl games, they want to compete for their school, they want to be there. And I think the big narrative has been, man, all these kids don't want to be at their schools, all these transfers to portal. That's true. There's still a majority of players in college football, and I don't have a percentage for you, but it is a majority that are staying at their school. They've been doing the off-season work. They have either started this year for that team, they're playing the bowl game, maybe they're a backup, but they're there. They have competed with this team all year long, and it's paying off in this bowl game. These, you know, eh, the future of college football is one that's going to be debated, and one that you and I know are going to get into in the off season. I'm sure multiple times, but like just from right now, what I'm watching, like bowl season, I think can still be a lot of fun. It has been a lot of fun so far, and even though it feels like an era where kids are transferring every year, it's tough to know rosters sometimes for teams. Obviously, heavy NIL money is being thrown around, which is great for the kids, happy for them, but sometimes it does reward the highest bidder, whatever that may be. But you can't deny the fact that there's these kids I'm going to assume almost all the kids that play college football still love the game of football. They're excited to go compete against another team, and the human connection of, hey, I'm going to work my tail off because all my buddies are working their tails off. We want to go win. We want to go compete. Like watching West Virginia against North Carolina, they were hyped. It was a big win for them. They were hyped for a great year. They were supposed to be bad this year. They end up with a 9-win season. They were hyped about it. So these games, look, maybe in the grand scheme of things, um, you know, they might be forgotten, if outside of a school's fan base in some cases, but these kids aren't going to forget, and these fan bases aren't going to forget, and that does mean something.
You're absolutely right, Drew Russell. These games can be so special to a lot of these guys, and just like the kids that you explained, some guys who build this brotherhood with the guys next to them. It feels like the more grittier kids who, commit to a team, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with guys who aren't a part of this group that I'm describing and who do, strive for, greener pastures. But I think that's such a good comparison to just the Big 12 in general as we see it. And we saw just the other night with Texas A&M and Oklahoma. You get a school like Texas A&M who's got oil money up the wazoo. They still got Johnny Manziel money running through their donor system. That Manziel mania,
Mm-hmm.
dollar bills coming through. Then you get a team like and top three recruiting classes 2 of the last 3 years. And then you get a gritty team like Oklahoma State, who's
Mm-hmm.
mostly intact. They're not going to have a ton of 5-star guys. They're not going to have guys who are making a bunch of NIL money. They're not going to have guys on their team who they poached from these blue bloods in the transfer portal. These are just dudes playing ball, and
Yeah.
there's no conference. I think that symbolizes that as well as the Big 12, and I think that we're seeing that pay off in dividends in this bowl season. What West Virginia is a great example, and I mean
Mm-hmm.
it's tough when a North Carolina team loses a special quarterback like Drake May, but this is what West Virginia has been like all year. Now you give them a
Mm-hmm.
month to prepare. They got most of their guys intact. They got guys who are stepping up in different roles and trying to make a name for themselves. And then Oklahoma State last night, and it's funny like the discourse online because Texas A&M fans are kind of waving it off like, oh, we only had this many scholarship players. We had these guys leave. We don't have a head coach. Like that's not an excuse.
No.
Like that's not a flex that you lost a game because your team was so bad that they fired the head coach during the season. It's not a
Yeah.
flex that you had a third of your team decide I would rather not be a Texas A&M Aggie and go play somewhere else than compete in this bowl game. It's not a
Right.
flex that three of your first four starting quarterbacks didn't want to be a part of this team. That's not a flex. That's everything. It feels like, and this might be hyperbolic, and I might just be passionate about the Big 12, but it feels exactly where the line is coming between the good and the right of college football and the guys who commit to their programs and put on their hard hat and go to work, and then guys who go to Texas A&M or who have gone to Texas A&M the last few years, and we got to see those two teams play out on the field. And
Yeah.
it was a pretty thorough ass whooping by Oklahoma State. Don't let the school fool you. They got a couple of cheap touchdowns late. Oklahoma State was in control of that game the entire game. They got torched by Alan Bowman. I mean, how many times have we criticized Alan Bowman this year? And he just torched that SEC defense. Another
Mm-hmm.
example why the SEC doesn't play any defense.
Yeah. I still think it's a crime for Oklahoma State, like Ollie Gordon, not getting not near the love I thought he deserved for the Heisman. I'm going
Yeah,
to put it bluntly. He had some huge games throughout the season. I thought he had deserved a trip to New York personally. I'm not saying he should have
yeah.
won it. I'm not going that far, but he had a great
Special season.
year. Yeah, like he had a great year, and it's fun to see them compete. And A&M's a great example. Like in college football, you do have to recruit at a high level, and recruiting is ever evolving. And these last 3-4 years, recruiting might has probably evolved more in this little span than maybe ever. Just the way things are going. But like A&M loses their QB very early in the game, and they're talking about, well, we got to go bit of this backup. I mean, Brandon, this is a top 300 recruit nationally, and they're
Yeah,
talking like this poor kid. I'm like,
yeah.
I get it.
Throwing after the
Like
Wolves.
maybe he's not ready for the moment. Like I understand that, but like this isn't like some wide receiver that they're trying to convert to QB. This kid was a stud in high school, a top 200 recruit nationally, and they're talking about, oh, this poor kid doesn't have and I'm like, maybe he doesn't in this game, but like this kid is a talented kid, and I don't know, it didn't rub me the right way. But you're right, it's not a flex for programs, and the turnover is going to be interesting as well to watch from program to program in the coming years, because with the NCAA making the announcement that players can transfer without penalty from school to school pretty much as much as they want, which is pretty wild.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see like which programs can keep around their conglomerate of talent, which programs see more transition. And I actually think, Brandon, the programs that are going to see more transition will be more of the blue bloods because look, they do get traditionally higher recruiting rankings, 4-star, 5-star guys. And to put it bluntly, if those guys, they're going to feel if they don't see playing time in the first, I'll even say year, if they don't play as freshmen, whether it's deserved or not deserved, they're going to say, I can go play somewhere else much quicker. And there'll be some school ready to go potentially with a payment as well. And Big 12 wise, I'm curious. I think Big 12, look, everybody's going to have transfers. That's guaranteed. But it wouldn't surprise me if the Big 12 has a higher retention rate of players amongst all of their programs. I'll combine everybody compared to the SEC and the Big Ten, and I'll even say the ACC as well. Like, I don't think it'd be that surprising at all if the Big 12 retains the most players. And I think that's good for the conference because it helps the fan bases get to connect with the players more, to connect with the coaches. And from a viewing perspective, it is more fun when you know certain characters year in and year out for programs.
Yeah, and I think the Big 12 is in an interesting spot, and I'm glad that you brought that up because it is interesting to think about because I think you're right as far as I think guys who come to programs in the Big 12 like Kansas, like Kansas State, like Iowa State,
Mm.
like 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 these gritty Midwestern programs, they come for the right reasons, and they're not coming to make $1 trillion in NIL, and they may know that there are probably other goals attainable other than winning a national championship, but they also know that this is also a spot where you can compete probably pretty quicker compared to some of the other big name schools that also have the
Mm-hmm.
benefits and amenities that I just mentioned. But you also get an opportunity to go out and play. And I think that the guys who, like Avery Johnson, a very, very talented quarterback coming out of high school, he knew exactly what he was signing up for at Kansas State. And
Right.
he had better offers, but he's like, I have an opportunity to play some really good football. I trust what CK and company are doing with this program. And even when Colin Klein left in the offseason to go to A&M, oddly enough, um, he stayed put because he's there for the right reasons. He's not there to
Yeah.
he's not there for vain reasons. He's there to get a good education and play some good football and torch North Carolina State on a what is it, Thursday night?
Yeah.
That's what he comes to
That's what he
Manhattan
does.
for, and I think that goes throughout the conference. Oklahoma State, everybody, Texas Tech. I think guys who go to like an Ohio State or a Florida State, you
Mm.
think you're going to make a lot of money in NIL. You think that you're going to be a top draft pick, and that may very well be the case. But you're also got to compete for literally your roster spot every single
Yeah.
season, where you get to go to a place like Kansas State and Oklahoma State. And like I can really develop into the best player I can be.
Right.
These are really good coaches, especially Kansas State. Kansas State does more with less talent than anybody in the country, and that's
Yeah.
not even just me. That's there are statistics to back that up. They get per pound more guys in the NFL, per pound more wins. In the country, you get guys like that throughout the entire conference. Guys who have been there for 20 years, like Mike Gundy. It's just such a different brand of football, and I'm so excited that we're seeing that thrive here in bowl season.
It's been a blast to watch, and to keep kind of quickly picking back on this is, I think if you want, you can get NIL money in a lot of places. I'd say all the big power conferences and even those smaller ones, I feel there's maybe a little extra money swimming around with local businesses and all that. Uh, but I feel like if you are going to college football and you're a player and you're just trying to get as much NIL money as possible while trying to play, if you're a 4 or 5 star recruit, hey, I would go the big boys. Go with the traditional blue bloods. There is more money there. There is more power there. I think if you're looking for more of a traditional collegiate experience, and I think there are going to be more players than you think that, yes, if they can make some money through NIL, of course they want to make money. They deserve that money. They should make that money. But, that you talk about the roster spot stuff and, that they want to not only play college football, but they want to enjoy their college career, both on the field, off the field as well. I think the Big 12 is in pretty good position to do that for any star recruit. You a 3, 4, 5 star, or even a lower star. Like these programs aren't necessarily going to push you out as often compared to the big programs, the SEC and the Big Ten. And I think that's great. Like I think it's great because sometimes kids do need to develop. I've seen in any sport, guys, people that are highly recruited out of high school, maybe they're not as ready as they thought they would be for the collegiate level yet. Well, that's not a big deal. That's okay. Like sometimes it takes a year or two to develop, and I think that's nice to have at certain schools. While you know, honestly, like if you go to Alabama these days, you don't play well, Brandon. That fan base, they're gonna just say, "Hey, go the transfer portal, find somebody who can come in and cover this wide receiver, find somebody who can get to the quarterback, or the QB's not producing, go find the best available option on the transfer portal." Like it's really interesting, but we're happy for the kids that are getting the chance this bowl season to show off.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And the Big 12's having a good bowl season, and you don't just have to take my word for it. You can take my spreadsheet's word for it if you're ready
Oh
to
yeah.
unveil. See
Oh, let's go.
the Cornhusker Connection Bowl Mania spreadsheet here.
It's one of the great spreadsheets in this country, ladies and gentlemen. This thing is a beauty.
And it just
Telling
gets
you.
better every single year. We put it together for the first time last year, hoping it would expose the fraudulent SEC. It didn't, but we got it back here. So here in this section, we got every game color coded here. It's imported this chart from Wikipedia, so the results come in. The colors here, red are the games between two group of 5 teams. We don't really pay attention to those for what we're trying to do here. Yellow, we got 1 Power 5 team, 1 non-Power 5 team. The green, 2 Power 5 teams. And so essentially how it breaks down is that there's a point system that you can see right here. So you get 50 points for winning a college football playoff game. Congratulations, you're beating one of the best teams in the country. You get 50 points. You also get 25 points for winning a New Year's Six bowl game. That's a really big deal. That's the Fiesta Bowl, the Orange Bowl, the Cotton Bowl, Peach Bowl, etc. Then you also get 15 points if you're not playing one of those games, but you beat a Power 5 team. Like Georgia Tech picked up 15 points for the ACC here, beating Central Florida. You can also get 5 points for winning just a bowl game that's against a group of 5 team. That means something too. UCLA had a real good showing against Boise State. That gets the Pac-12 some points. And then you also get 5 points taken away if you lose to a group of 5 team. So
Like that.
South Florida, I wish I could have taken more points away from Syracuse. I thought about it. You get shut out 45-0 by South Florida, like the 6th best team in the state of Florida.
Hey, that's a formerly great Big East rivalry right there, Brandon.
No kidding. And
Man.
one of them came to play, the other didn't.
Man.
So now what does this look like? So I put together all of my picks before the bowl season as far as how do I think things are going to shape up here? And admittedly, a little bit heavy on the Big 12. Gave them the benefit of the doubt, but they're proving me right so far. So here's how it shapes up here. So in my predictions, I had the Big 12 coming away as the grand champion, tied with the Pac-12 here. And also, worth mentioning, this doesn't even include a Texas win.
Yep.
I have them losing, and it's just the rest of the Big 12 picks up 95 points. They really feast before the New Year's Six bowl games start in games.
Yep.
And so far, they've done very well. And we talked about Oklahoma State and Texas A&M. Texas Tech had a big win against Cal. Kansas State's giving it to NC State right now. West Virginia with a big win over North Carolina. There's a lot of 50-50 games, and I think the Big 12 shapes up very well. UCF would have been a big win. I had them. They did not come through. Moment of silence for Arthur Gustavo Malzahn III.
Miss him. You tried out Gustavo. I had too much faith in you, buddy. I thought you had one more in the tank this season.
We needed him. We needed him to come through. He didn't. He let us down, but it did give the ACC some life. Because I predicted, I really predicted the ACC to have a real rough showing. I thought Troy was gonna pick up a win against the SEC. I thought Tulane was gonna beat up on Virginia Tech this week. I thought SMU was gonna pull it off in the Fenway Bowl. Holy smokes, SMU stinks. But I mean the ACC's adding another power, and the Mustangs. So that's kind of how I had it going down and had Michigan and Washington picking up big points for their respective
Hmm.
conferences. The Big 12 probably being as balanced as they can. They pick up a win here pre New Year's Six. They pick up a couple of big wins. Penn State being the big winner there, and then Michigan in the college football playoff.
Yeah,
So
that's a that's a beautiful chart right
yeah,
there. But I see those numbers and I take a look at that, and man, it shows the power the Big 12's got, though, of, especially in the future as well, that there's some great programs in this conference, ones that consistently can win a lot of football games. And it shows the opportunity that this conference has if they can find potential new powerhouses, whether that's a rotational basis or a couple teams just win big year in and year out. But it does show the power this conference has of how good it is. I think that's often slept on.
yeah, I think this is a great opportunity for the Big 12 to show like, hey, it, we are a power conference. We
Hmm.
are when our best are playing your best, or our fourth place team is playing your fourth place team, or our 6-6 teams playing your 6-6 teams. We go toe to toe with everybody in the country. And I
Yep.
think this is a great opportunity to kind of prove that point going into this next year, where I think there's going to be a lot of agenda being pushed. Well, it's actually just a Power Two conference. It's really just the SEC and the Big Ten. And I don't. This is a big opportunity for the Big 12 to say no, no, we're here too.
Hmm. No question about it. It's exciting to see, and it's also we also want to pour one out for the Pac-12 as well. Putting together, great final season. I'm sad it's going, even though I know the
Yeah.
Big 12's getting some new teams, some fun teams from it. But I'm gonna miss the Pac-12. You got me on record saying that one, Brandon. I can't lie.
Also, I just want to quickly dance on the grave a little bit. Utah got beat up pretty bad by Northwestern. I don't know if you remember that, True Russell.
I do. I
That
do.
was I was not expecting that from the Utes, from the team that's supposedly going to come in and run the Big 12. Day
Oh,
one,
they got Target on their back next year, Brandon.
yeah.
It's kind of fun. You get into this new era, of the Big 12. It's who are you absolutely going to hate, and every school kind of has their natural rivals, but you'll always have who, like, right now. Texas is the very obvious answer that kind of every team in the conference hates Texas. Like, that's
Mhm.
just clear as day. Uh, I love it that Utah has become hyper hateable, and that pretty much I feel a good chunk of the conference fan bases are like, all right, we hate our own personal teams for various reasons, but like Utah, worst. We hate Utah. We want to see them lose every single week. I love it. I think it's great, and it's hilarious. They lost to a team in Northwestern that uh, takes academics way more seriously. I thought they just spent their time in the library, Brandon, but here they are winning football games with an interim coach. I think probably full time, I'd hope by now, but um, good, nice work, Utah. I thought you were going to change the world. That's what I was
Yeah,
told.
that's what
Come
I was
on,
told.
Utah.
I was told that quite a bit. Told that quite a bit. I had it's always so funny to me because I when they got blown out by Arizona, I'm like I tweeted out Arizona's or Utah's not even going to be the best team coming to the Big 12 next year. They're not even going to be the best team in the conference, let alone the four teams that are coming from the Pac-12. And then a Utah burner account not only saved that tweet or replied to that tweet, but also saved it until Nebraska lost to Iowa,
Mhm.
so he could come and dance on my grave a little bit. But yeah, I think you're absolutely right, and I think what else is going to be very fun is that it's kind of putting the conference into little cliques, to where it's you're gonna have the West Coast schools, and then you're gonna have like the Hateful Eight, who hates all the West Coast schools, and then you have the
Yeah.
group of the former AAC powerhouses, in their own little corner of the lunchroom. And I think that makes it so good, because it's not just I hate. It's not just because as a Nebraska fan, I just kind of hate everybody else in the Big Ten. I kind of
Yeah.
if you're playing Iowa, I guess I'll root for you that week. But everybody else can. I'm pretty much rooting for your downfall out of the other 15 teams in the league. With the Big 12, it's like I'd probably say like I'm the biggest fan of TCU or Iowa State, but other than that, like the Hateful Eight schools get my allegiance first and foremost. And then the Big 12 against the world.
Oh yeah.
It'll be interesting to see like if Utah does get to a spot where they're like in a New Year's Six bowl next year,
Hmm.
or just even in a bowl game in general, where it's them and a team from another conference like the SEC. Like, do we then back Utah because they're one of us now, or are we still rooting for their downfall? That'll be interesting.
That's gonna be the question, and we're gonna know. I feel like throughout the off season, we're gonna get a good idea. I would hyper recommend Brandon. You continue to use the internet chat rooms to get clear clarity on if we're gonna become supporters of Utah or if this podcast becomes a anti-Utah propaganda machine. Hey, I'm open to arguments. We're pretty reasonable here at Big 12 or go home. But I mean, we're gonna have a decision by the next football season. The jury's out on Utah right now, but they do run a program I've had a lot of respect for in general. Love their coaching staff. They've had some really nice players come through. It's really just the fan base. Like their fan base is, they've just kind of made them unlikable. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah,
I don't
and
know.
it's tough because we won't know. We won't know until they do. And I'm looking at their schedule next year. I don't even think we'll really get to know until like bowl season next year because they play Southern Utah. Whoop-de-doo. I hope Southern Utah wins that game. And then they play Utah State. They're just doing a round robin of all the Utah schools, I guess.
Got to be Utah champs. Got to be
I
state
guess so.
champs.
And then they play. Is that it for non-conference?
Here's a
Can't be
question,
right.
Brandon. When they play BYU, is this podcast making a run out to Provo? Because that's going to be hyper tempting. Because that's a beautiful. I mean Utah. That's a beautiful state out there.
That
They
is
got
a
a lot
good
of
spot to be. Yeah.
cool spot. I
Rovo.
have seen
Oh,
on
that's gonna be a
TV
big
that
deal.
Provo. I mean, it looks kind of cool. And that's that they call it the Holy War. It's a heck of a rivalry. Um, I don't know. That's just something to keep an eye on in the future. I
Yeah.
must say, it's
That's a good
um,
point.
but there's some great rivalries. But yeah, Utah is going to be. We need. I feel every conference just needs a team to absolutely despise in order for it to like function at a peak level in terms of enjoyment. And that's why, Texas has been great for many years. The SEC is getting a great team to hate. Got to hand
Absolutely.
it
And
to
a good
'em.
antagonist.
I feel like Alabama's always been kind of an easy team to hate, but they're more of like their fans are pretty, difficult, but they do win a lot.
Yeah,
You're,
they win all the championships.
yeah,
You
I'll
gotta love
defend
when they
them a
win all
little
their
bit. They do
awards.
win. They can be a little arrogant. Texas hasn't won in a long time, boy, but you would not know it. But Texas and Texas A&M, that's the insufferable bowl right
Yeah,
there,
no kidding.
Brandon.
No kidding.
You can't win there. In fact, A&M fans are tough enough. If Texas wins, I'm not mad. I just say, all
I'm
right,
not mad. I'm like, all
I'm
right.
not mad.
Yeah,
don't.
that's a good way to put it.
I'm not mad.
Uh,
That's what I'll go with.
I also have a hot take. I think the SEC is gonna run through Norman here in a couple of years.
You think so?
I think so, and it might just be more agenda pushing that the two Big 12 schools are going to come in and dominate the SEC. But I kind of believe it. You look at the way that Oklahoma's trajectory is and how they're trending up. I
Mhm.
mean, look at how good Texas is, and Brett Venables has had a way better year two than Sark did.
Yes.
They're still getting blue chip prospects.
Yes.
They're still very clearly a blue blood program. Brett Venables has done a great job. Um, they've been outstanding. And then Nick Saban can't coach forever. He's 72 years old. Like he's gonna stop eventually.
Yes.
And I would wager that it would be within the next 5 years.
Yeah.
I guess once they get Lane Kiffin in there, that's going to be a problem as well. Kirby Smart's a problem,
Yep.
but I think Oklahoma's in a good spot, and I think it would be very funny if the two Big 12 teams just waltz right into into the SEC and dominate. I think that would be great.
I don't think it's crazy. It's kind of like Texas. I think their fans feel, especially after this year, they're going to the SEC guns a blazing, and they're going to keep this streak going. Which I'm with you. Like when they first made this announcement, I felt it was a pretty healthy consensus, and I'll even say both their fan bases to an extent felt like this that they are going to get crushed in the SEC potentially. And there have been a lot of schools that have been thrown out there that are part of one conference, and then they join another. They aren't as good. There was concern about that. But for Texas, I feel they're going to a good spot. And Oklahoma, I'm kind of with you, Brandon. I still think they can go into the SEC and be a consistent 9+ win team and still have an opportunity to compete for championships. And when it comes to their stadium, like it does get loud in there, and they're going to get some premier games these first few years in the SEC. They've got a chance to do something interesting, but the conference, that conference does get tougher, no question about it, with OU and Texas joining the fold. But I think both have a shot of, making a run. And I'm sure some of those bottom feeders or the lower half of members of the conference that are, they're sweating deep down of trying to figure out how on earth they're going to compete, which the Big 12 is not going to have an issue right now for every one of these teams. They're thinking, I think administration shouldn't expect their team to be a bottom feeder because I think there are winnable games in the coming years, week in, week out for nearly every school. SEC, I won't make the same claim. You're Vanderbilt University right now. It's brutal. I don't know what to tell you because that is not an easy situation to live in. South Carolina, that could be really interesting kind of coming up these years on their end. Mississippi State, Arkansas. These wins are not going to be easy to come by, and it will be interesting again to see who goes up that totem pole, who goes down, who falls into irrelevance. And, SEC doesn't have a buyout fee. I am curious if eventually, and I think it would take a lot of years to get to this point, if some team just gets sick of losing and says, you know what, we're going to dip down to if the revenue money's near the same, I think that'd be the key. But if they dip down to a Big 12 or ACC, and said, you know what, we have a better chance to win here. Money's about the same or close to the same. Who knows, Brandon? There's a lot of potential there.
And I think the interesting part with that is I think the SEC's pretty good and pretty good standing as far as this goes. Also, don't feel too bad for those schools because they do get 4 non-conference games that they can fill up with as much slop as they want. So they only have to win two league games to win to get to a bowl game. So don't feel too bad. But the Big Ten is one to keep an eye on, where they're like, we're at 20 teams, and we don't like a lot of our teams in this league. What if we like, hey, for the next 10 years, we'll keep giving you a share. Just get out of our league.
Yeah.
Just leave us alone. Because, we trade like a Maryland for maybe a Florida State or a Clemson, or now that the ACC is imploding, the Big Ten's not just going to stand put and let all those good schools go to the SEC if they can help it. But they're also 20 schools deep. So it's like, well,
yeah.
Sorry, Rutgers. The New York market's cool, I guess, but we'll keep compensating you, but get out of here. And they'll go back to the ACC, and they'll still keep cashing checks from the Big Ten. So I think eventually it could get to that point where because if I'm Vanderbilt, I'm absolutely soaking up as much SEC money as possible.
Oh yeah, you don't need look for Vanderbilt. I know you're taking your L's. It could be some very thin times, but let's not kidding around. Vanderbilt's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
It's just clear as day there. They shouldn't. They should stick with it. But you're right. I just there are some potential future potential consequences there, but it should be very interesting with OU and Texas out of the fold in the Big 12. They'll have some very interesting schedules, and it will be interesting. I know Arkansas fans, Brandon, they're looking forward to Texas coming back to Donald W.D. Reynolds.
I can't wait.
Stadium in Fayetteville next November.
I have to in November.
I'm going to tell you right now, Brandon. November game, mid-November. If I can get Arkansas for a winning record, look out. Just a winning record. Doesn't have to be ranked or anything. Just a winning record is all I ask. 500 is all I ask, and we could do something there.
Drew Russell, I think that the dangerous thing about Arkansas when they play Texas, I don't even think they have to have a winning record.
Oh, no.
I think that's a game where they're like, this could be our only win of the year, and we're tearing down goalposts. We're juiced.
I'll tell you what, Brandon. Fayetteville, Arkansas is a wonderful town, great college town, a town that really respectable during daytime hours, loves to have some fun on nights and weekends. Texas, yeah, I'll tell you what, Texas comes to town, I call it Vietnam, because lookout is all I say. That's all I say. So it's but yeah, I mean it'll be interesting for Texas, Oklahoma, and obviously for the Big 12. Some pretty exciting stuff with the 4 new teams coming out west, and some really exciting new rivalries there.
No kidding. But as we kind of wrap up, so we saw where I would project the conferences to finish up come bowl season. Again, a very Big 12 heavy. I'll admit that.
Mm-hmm.
But here's how it actually is shaping up right now. So we have this chart here. To the left is all the results that we've gotten so far. So
Yep.
the Big 12 has played more games than anybody, so shocker, they have the most points. In this bottom row, we have the max possible score. So if the Big 12 wins all of their games from here on out, this is what they could end up with. Actually, now that I'm talking out loud, I don't think that's completely accurate because some of these schools play each other, so they could both, in theory, get those points. But well, no, because if the Big 12 wins all their games, they're going to end up with this. Okay.
Correct. Yeah. You're
Gotcha.
good. Yep.
Yeah. And this chart right here is kind of in addition onto that, so that the Big 12 has the most points right now, but the SEC still got a ton of potential coming down the pipe, even though they got this fat little stinky bagel here. It's also they've won 0 bowl games. It's almost New Year's Day, Drew Russell, but
I know.
what it is.
Yeah, well, that's they don't look at. They say that bowl games don't count till the New Year's. In the SEC, as they always say, it just means more.
It just means more, except when they're playing Oklahoma States.
Yeah, that doesn't matter.
The Big 12 dropping a game that I wish we could have had in the UCF Georgia Tech game, because they really do have to feast here in these non New Year's Six bowls, because conferences like the Big 10 and the SEC and the Pac-12 are going to have huge opportunities to catch up here. And they still have Texas after the New Year's Six bowl game starts, so hopefully we don't have to rely on Texas, but they're very much right in the thick of it. And I'll tell you what, looking at the schedule here for the Big 12, I think that they're in good shape as far as opportunities to win games here. Let's see what else we got. So we have Kansas State, who's doing really good against NC State as we're recording. Arizona with a winnable game against a transfer portal ridden Oklahoma team.
Mm-hmm.
Wait a minute, no, Arizona's not in the Big 12 yet. We don't want them.
Yeah, well, how do we support that game, Brandon? We got one team in the Big 12 that's leaving, and then another that's joining next year. But for your chart, we gotta. I mean, it's OU still a official member of the conference. So I mean, you want OU to do well.
Yeah, I think for this propaganda spreadsheet that I put together, we're gonna have to root for Oklahoma. I do think that it would be cool if we made a clause. I don't know how we do this legally, but if Arizona beats Oklahoma, then they inherit their Big 12 championships. What are you going to do with them? You're leaving. Just leave them here. We'll take them. Take them off your hands.
That would be quite interesting. I would love to see the process of Oklahoma taking all that off their stadium.
Yeah.
And then that it's very public, and then Arizona goes to this whole they're hey, you were a member of the 2000 Big 12 champion team. How does it feel?
Yeah.
What are you talking about? Well, it says on the stadium you were a champion for the Big 12, and I don't know. I feel like we could create some very interesting headlines and narratives with this.
If there's any sport that could pull it off, it would be college football. Make no mistake about it.
It's only sport on the planet that could do it. I mean that. I think it's the only sport on earth that could actually pull this kind of shenanigans, and instead of people would lose their minds, but you would also be like, well, it is college football.
It is.
You can use that as an excuse. Oh man.
And then looking down the slates, we got Iowa State and Memphis. You got to feel pretty good about that one. Only a 5-pointer. And then it's all on Texas. If the Big 12 is going to win at this point, I think they do have to pick up that win against Texas. But they're knocking on the door of a real successful bowl season.
Yeah.
If
And
Oklahoma can
it's
pick up
fun
a win,
to
Iowa State can
see.
take care of business. Yeah, they're in
It's
good
fun to
shape.
see, and that's especially, next year. We've discussed a lot about the 12-team football playoff coming up next year, but it does give you kind of hope for the, Big 12 and all or the Big 12 specifically, that that they can go compete in that next year with their new group of schools Texas will represent this year, and potentially find multiple wins. I don't know if I'm going to go nutty enough and say national champion for a Big 12 team next year or maybe in the year after, but this conference has teams that are good enough to find wins against the top 12 teams for sure.
Yeah, and it's the SEC has that nonsense slander. It just means more. I would make the argument it actually means more in the Big 12. Like these games that Texas A&M players don't give a hoot about. It means more for folks
Hmm.
in Stillwater and those student athletes, and I think that will make up for some of the talent gap. I don't think that we're going to see a Big 12 national championship dynasty this stage in the game. I think it'd be really cool if we did. I couldn't even
Oh
tell
yeah.
you who would be the favorite to do that, but that's where the Big 12 is at, and I think it's a good spot to be.
Here will be an interesting question. If a Big 12 team gets to host a playoff game at home next year, who would have the best potential environment? Because there's
My
some really
yeah.
interesting ones like across the board that I think could really go just nuts. Yeah, I mean, I'm biased. I think Ames, Iowa would be a fascinating place to potentially see that happen. I think Stillwater would be a great atmosphere. Um, West Virginia would be a hilarious atmosphere. I feel that would be
Yeah,
bananas. That would
that
be a
would be
game I actually would
bananas.
maybe consider trying to like
Yeah.
blow hundreds of bucks to go see, because I just feel that environment would just be absolutely ridiculously dumb and funny. I don't
Yeah, so
know.
there's a couple of good answers. The first one that comes to my mind is Stillwater. I mean, Boone Pickens Stadium gets after. Those guys are sickos down there
I know.
in Stillwater. The next one that comes to mind is TCU if they were to elect to play their game at AT&T Stadium.
Hmm.
I think if you fill 80,000 folks in that stadium, like I think
I agree.
they, that's a tough
It'd be
ask. I don't know
tough.
if they would.
I don't know if I could make that promise or not, but it'd
Yeah,
be it'd be close. They could make it
yeah,
close.
yeah. If they can travel very well, or I guess if they, yeah, I don't know about that one. I'm talking myself out of it because they traveled very well to the Fiesta
Okay.
Bowl last year. But that was only half the stadium, so I don't
Okay,
know.
also I want to give a shout out to Texas Tech. They get a playoff
Texas
home
Tech.
game at night. Good
Ooh,
night. Give me
could
like the
that
late
seal it?
night game for that. Like I'd want them like start at 9:15, because
Yeah,
that would be
yeah.
just fun. That'd be hilarious.
And then I think Ames gets a lot of points just for it being as cold, especially if you get a team like a Florida State team or a USC,
Yeah.
or I think if you get one of those teams coming to town, I think that's a real good
Hmm.
deal for Iowa State. But yeah, I think just the rowdiest, the sickoest environments would be Stillwater or not Stillwater, Lubbock and Morgantown.
Yeah. I fully agree with that. I think those environments would be great. I don't know. I think BYU would also have a pretty cool environment. Like I
I
feel like
think
they would
so.
really bring a lot of noise and stuff to the stadium. I think that'd be fun. But possibilities are endless, and big shout out to the bowl season. Don't change anything about it. In fact, I think bowl season will even be better next year. As weird as that sounds, because I think with the 12-team playoff, it forces all 6 of those big New Year's bowl games to matter. That means something. And I still think bowl season has some interesting storylines and intrigue. And this year it's been kind of different storylines. But if you watch the product on the field, they've been some pretty good games across the board. So it's a lot of fun.
You're absolutely right. It's a good slate for the Big 12 this week. I mean, by the time that this airs, we'll know the who gets to claim all those 2000 Big 12 championships in Arizona and Oklahoma, and then it's just up to Iowa State and Texas. Which if the Martians are pointing a beam at Earth, and you have two Big 12 schools to save the league, you take the talented Texas team, and then you take Rocco Beck and the Iowa State Cyclones.
Man.
You trust them with the Martians and the space beam on the line pointed towards Earth.
I know Iowa State fans are a little bitter that they've got to go to Memphis, but let me tell you something. I couldn't think of a better city for this gritty football team. In fact, I bet Memphis is the town my guy Matt Campbell vacations at if he had a choice. Like, this is our place. Can't wait. Liberty Bowl should be a great atmosphere. I don't know if it's going to be, they were able to drink all the Busch Light out of fruition a few years ago in Memphis. I don't know if they'll pull that off again, but Iowa State will be ready to go. In Texas, well, we'll see. That'll be quite a football game, though, Brandon. I know we previewed it the last episode, but I think that game has the potential to be one of the ones you remember for a few years between them and Washington. Great quarterback play, great weapons on the outside. Texas has a great front seven defensively. Washington has some, I think, creative guys on the defensive end, and I think they have some of the best wins out of anybody this year in the country. To beat Oregon twice, I think, was impressive. I thought that was a good Oregon team. So it should be a lot of fun. A lot of fun on the horizon. And as we break into the new year, this podcast is excited to see how these games play out and see what 2024 brings to the conference as well.
A couple of quick questions. The next time that we'll have an episode, we'll basically know who's won the conference championship, Bowl Mania, Cornhusker Connection, Big 12, Bowl Mania Spreadsheet Challenge. Yeah. We'll also know the two teams in the national championship game. So which conference takes home the conference crown, and who's playing in the national championship?
Well, I think for the national championship overall, I think it's going to be Michigan, Texas. I got Michigan, Texas. I like that Michigan team. I think they're tough. They're gritty. They got good QB play. Bama's good. They're always tough, but I don't know. They've been inconsistent enough for me this year that I don't think they can get it done at Pasadena. And I think Washington and Texas are very even, but I'm going to say Texas wins at home field in New Orleans. They'll definitely have a crowd advantage compared to Washington. And I think their offense will create enough problems for Washington's defense. Even if it gets into a shootout, I think Texas can play and win in any style of game.
I'm with you too. I like Michigan by a million. I just can't. I don't want to think about what Twitter would look like if Alabama rolls through Michigan after all the stuff I've talked about them leaving Florida State out of the college football playoff. I feel like that would validate the suits who ultimately decided to leave a undefeated Power 5 team out of the playoff. I feel like that would validate them, which I don't want. And I'll take I think I'll tell you what I think Washington gets so slept on as good as they've been. They were underdogs in 2 of their last 3 games this season, Drew Russell.
Crazy. I know.
I mean, I can't believe it. But my gut says them, but I think I'm rooting for the Big 12. I think Texas can absolutely pull it off. Give me 50 points for the league, and I think the Big 12 takes home the crown. We get a win at the top end with Texas, and then we feast on the non-New Year's 6 bowl games, and then we're coming at you next year on New Year's Day. Make no mistake about it.
Oh, that spreadsheet is going to be nothing but beauty. It's that Big 12 bar is going to be higher than the other 4. That's my final analysis, ladies and gentlemen. It's going to be taller than that other bar, but great bowl season so far. We got some great games coming up this weekend, both in the collegiate arena, NFL as well. Brandon and I always suffering with our NFL teams, but great times ahead. We can't wait, and it should be a lot of fun to see how the Big 12 finalizes things. And New Year's Day is going to be great this year. I know that.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.